will get very much. No. Okay. We're all right.
Okay, good.
Sure.
Okay, today we're streaming. Remember to do that. So it's 1:30, so let's ease into this. So yesterday we focused mostly on the very first step of doing Mahamudra. The very first step is trying to clear away from our mind all of the busyness in order to start to get a sense of the nature of the mind. So in the meditation we started to ease in. Oh, what is it? Streaming and also spotlight. This one, got it. Thank you. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So yesterday was a practice on developing a neutral regard to the content of our mind, to start to identify with the nature or process of the mind rather than with the content of the mind. Is streaming? Yes. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, because our mind is very busy. It's full of all kinds of stuff, and so we don't really even have an awareness of what is the nature of the mind. And so by not reacting, not giving weight and energy to the content of our mind, we can create some space so that the nature of the mind starts to become perceptible. And then we kind of worked in a little bit of the practice of some metaphors on the nature of the mind towards the end of the meditation yesterday. But I thought I'd talk a little bit to start, just talk about what is this conventional nature of the mind, so we can have a bit of an idea about what it is that we want to capture when we create space in our mind by not reacting to the appearances and to the content. So the nature of the conventional nature of the mind. So when we speak about conventional nature, the other side of that is the other side of the coin of reality. Conventional nature, the other side is ultimate nature. Ultimate nature of the mind is the same as the ultimate nature of everything, which is the mere absence of inherent existence. Also can be called emptiness of inherent existence. So empty doesn't mean nothing, right? Empty means something's absent. So empty doesn't mean nothingness. It doesn't mean, what it means is that something that used to be there isn't there anymore. And so that's important to understand. And I'll get into that a little bit later, maybe in the second session. But so getting back to the conventional nature of the mind, the way it's described, the easiest set of words to use to describe this is the mind has one nature and it has one function. So the nature of the mind can be called clarity, is often called clarity. But what does that mean? Does it mean it's clear? Yes, but you have to understand clear as similar to a mirror that is clear. So a cloudy mirror or a foggy mirror or a blurred mirror isn't a clear mirror, right? So a clear mirror is a mirror that can perfectly reflect what it is to reflect. And so that's our mind may not experience that clarity because our mind may be obscured. But the mind has this nature of clarity. Just as you could say muddy water is, you can't see through muddy water, but the nature of the water is clear. So if you were to let a glass of muddy water sit for a while, the particles would fall to the bottom and the clear nature of water would be revealed. So similarly, the mind, although our mind may not feel very clear, its nature is clarity. It has this capacity, if it wasn't obscured, to perfectly reflect what there is to be known. That's the nature of the mind. So the nature of our mind is this perfect reflective mirror that can perfectly reflect its object of knowledge, whatever there is to be known, and everything that there is to be known. The mind can reflect that, can apprehend, or you can experience everything that there is to be known with the mind, because your mind has this nature of clarity. And then what's the other quality of the mind aside from this clarity? It's sometimes called um, uh, knowing or luminescence. Sometimes it's called, like, there's sometimes the luminescence. So, for example, a mirror, like a physical piece of glass with silver coating on the back of the mirror, it has this quality of reflection, but it doesn't have a quality of knowing. It doesn't have a quality of illumination. So if the mirror was in a dark room where there was no other source of light, the mirror would not reflect anything. The mind brings its own light. The mind has the second quality of illumination or knowing. So that actually means that it is impossible to have a mind and to experience nothingness. So that helps to clarify that it's actually it's a confusion to think that we want to meditate on nothingness, because it's actually impossible, because our mind will always know something, because that's its function. Its function is illumination or knowing. So if we apply that definition, the mind is clear and knowing, or has this illuminating quality, then what does that mean when we're doing meditation? When we're trying to experience the conventional nature of our mind. So yesterday we looked at not giving energy or weight to all the appearances that come up in our mind. And as we develop a practice of doing this, if we do this for an extended period of time, what happens is the mind quiets down, and there starts to be periods of time when there isn't any content, like the mind isn't reflecting anything. And so when the mind, when there's nothing in front of the mirror, what does the mirror reflect? Well, I think from a perspective of a physical mirror, there's always going to be something there, it seems like, unless it's a dark room. But with regard to the mind, it's possible that the mind can become so calm and so quiet that there's no. What it would mean is that your sense consciousnesses are not presenting information. So if you were to enter into a very absorbed state of concentrated awareness, your sense consciousnesses would shut down, like when you fall asleep. When you fall asleep, your sense consciousnesses cease. And so if you were to maintain awareness as you fell asleep, you would stop having any awareness of anything sensory. And similarly, the thoughts and feelings, emotions, imagination, this can also be caused to cease. If we withdraw the energies to not the completely coarse levels of mind, which are sensory, but we withdraw energy from conceptual aspects of our mind, then concept also ceases. So then what is there? The mind will be knowing something, but what could it possibly know if there's no sensory information and there's not even any conceptual functioning? What is there left for the mind to be aware of? I guess you would have to say the mind can only at that point be aware of itself. So that's where we have this book, Mind, a Knowing Mind. And so it's at that point that the mind will have a very clear, distinct reflection of its own nature, which is clarity. So there's not much there, really. There's not much there for the mind to know, because the only thing that the mind can know at that point is clarity, which is, you think of colorless light, that's not much really to be aware of, but that's all there is to be aware of, is light that has no clarity, like it's completely transparent, that there's nothing really there, but that's the nature of the mind, the conventional nature of the mind. And so that's our job with Mahamudra. That's once we are able to let the mind settle down by not giving weight to the sensory and conceptual content of the mind. And that takes a lot of work. And I've heard meditation teachers say that this very initial practice gives you the fastest and greatest return on investment from any kind of meditation you may do. And the reason for saying that is that we are so overwhelmed with the content of our mind and our reactions to the content of our mind. We have no freedom. We have no freedom at all. We're continuously overwhelmed and in a state of reaction uncontrollably to what's going on in our mind. So this very initial practice of not reacting, of not pushing away, of not grasping what's going on, we have that habit, then we start to have this space in our minds where we're not continuously reacting. And that space allows us to start to choose. How do we respond to what's going on? And we start to be able to make more intelligent choices that will allow us to reduce the causes of suffering and increase the causes for happiness. So this is, even though it seems quite simple, it takes quite a bit of effort to do, and you get a really huge return. You start to gain freedom. Right now we've got a fairly intense bit of rain happening out there. I don't think we'll be walking meditation outside.
No. That's a no-go.
Yeah. So even though it's quite simple and it's not the end, it's still a really, really fine meditation. Then once we've got some skill, some capability for allowing whatever is going to come into our awareness, whether it's sensory, whether it's a memory or an emotion, but not giving it any weight. You could say not giving it any mind, not reacting to it, not pushing it away, not chasing it or chasing it away. Then the mind starts to calm down. It's like the muddy water starts to become clear, and there are gaps in content. And so you could say, when you have that gap, when there's nothing there but this clarity of the mind, then you choose to focus on that. If you can, at this point, you don't want to react strongly, because that just reintroduces turbulence. So we have to be very skillful about having a very gentle sort of engagement with our awareness at that point. So that's the nature of the mind, the conventional nature of the mind, that is, you could say it's not the first step, but it's maybe the second or third step. Second step, let's say. And why do we want? Because ultimately we want to realize emptiness, right? We want utter and complete freedom. And so to do that, we have to realize the absence of inherent existence of the self and phenomena. So how does developing this capacity to be aware of the fundamental clarity of the mind help with that? And the answer is that this conventional nature of the mind, the clarity of the mind, is quite similar to the experience of the absence of inherent existence of self and phenomena. is quite similar. It's a mere clarity, right? There isn't anything else happening there. So that's not much different than meditating on an absence. So because they're so similar, it's a really good way to go about this. And so yesterday morning, the text said that there's two approaches to realizing emptiness. One of them is to apply an analysis and then to develop calm abiding outcome of the analysis. And the other way is to develop this clarity of the mind and then to almost discover emptiness on the basis of that clarity of the mind. And the reason why it's so much, one could say it's easy to realize emptiness from this clear nature of the mind is because they're so similar. We've already done a great deal of work. And so emptiness kind of reveals itself. But it can also be a bit of a pitfall because you may think, okay, I've realized emptiness when all you've realized is the conventional clarity of your mind, right? So you have to keep on working at it. And what Lamy Geshe, he uses a term, the mindfulness fish. It is the method we use to start to work on emptiness once we have an experience of the clear nature of our mind. And the fish metaphor is if you have water and the water has become very still, the surface of the water is very smooth, so that now it's perfectly reflecting the shore, what's on the shore and also what's in the sky. You want to have an introspective awareness that doesn't cause ripples. It doesn't disturb our meditation on the clarity of the mind. So it's like a little fish that can swim without creating any ripple. So we want to be able to start looking at ourself from within this clear nature of the mind, but without disturbing our awareness of the clear nature of the mind. So Lamy Geshe uses the term mindfulness fish. It's very small, very gentle, very sort of undisturbing, separate or function of the mind of analysis or introspection. And what we're looking for in this clear nature of the mind, what we start to very gently introduce is a search for and an analysis on the self within this clear nature of the mind. How does the self appear to us? But I think we'll talk a little bit more about that in the second session. I'm going to try not to go so long. I really lost track of time yesterday, and we had a long session. I'd like to, because we're not in a long retreat where we can really do long sessions effectively. I'd rather do short ones. So we'll do the first one where we'll work a little bit more at seeing if we can at least get a clear sense, a clear conceptual idea. What is this clarity of the mind? And then maybe that will help us to actually notice, oh yes, there it is, when it does emerge from being overwhelmed by all the other parts of our mind. So let's try that. And we will again do a little Guru Yoga on Shakyamuni Buddha, but not the elaborate one we did last time. It is there on our playlist for Mahamudra, so if anybody wants to go back to that, it's there now. Thank you very much, Alex, for the recording. So I'm going to share my screen on this again. Here we go. And this time I'm going to read verbatim Lamy Geshe's meditation here on Guru Shakyamuni Buddha. We'll start with just a moment of breathing meditation to collect our energies and to collect our awareness into the here, our body, and the now. Our breathing isn't anywhere but here in our body. Our breathing isn't in the past, it's not in the future. So now we will, by the way, I guess I'm using my laptop microphone. Is that working for everybody? Are the levels good? Yeah? Okay. Thank you. Just realized. Okay, so now we will meditate on the profound path of Guru Yoga to give us some guidance. So we'll meditate on a visualization of Shakyamuni Buddha and reciting the mantra of Shakyamuni Buddha. So we don't have to have a crystal clear visualization. We can just think, Buddha is here in front of me. To visualize Guru Shakyamuni Buddha in space in front of you. He can be big or small, whatever is comfortable. Don't think of him as physical. His omnipresent wisdom manifests as a radiant golden light body. Now visualize at the center of your chest, where your heart chakra is, a yellow flame surrounded by the letters of the mantra, which are vibrating with a reddish yellow electric energy. Light radiates from the letters, automatically purifying all your impure concepts while you recite the mantra a few times. So this is the mantra of Buddha Shakyamuni. So we're visualizing the Buddha in front of us as golden light, but we also visualize the Buddha's mantra in our heart. And light comes from this mantra in our heart and purifies. Te adho mune mune Mahamudra swaha. Te adho mune mune Mahamudra swaha. Te adho mune mune Mahamudra swaha. So Lama Yeshe says, we don't have to think of this practice as some kind of Tibetan ritual. It's quite simple. We say Muni Muni Hamaha Munye, meaning conqueror, great conqueror. Think that you're conquering the egotistic mind. Saying Swaha puts the realization of this into your heart. And now we can purify the body. Imagine bright white laser beams shooting out from Guru Shakyamuni Buddha's brow chakra and entering into your brow chakra, filling your brain and your entire body, burning up all the heaviness of your body, transforming it into a radiant light body. Mune mune Mahamudra swaha. Te adho mune mune Mahamudra swaha. Te adho mune mune Mahamudra Now we purify our speech. Guru Shakyamuni Buddha sends from his throat chakra radiant red laser beams which shoot into your throat chakra, burning up all your impure speech, the lies you tell, the harsh speech, and all the nonsense, all the blah, blah, blah. Throughout our life, with our speech, is almost endless nonsense. All this is burned up, and your throat chakra fills up with the blissful, radiant, red light energy. Mahamudra Swaha. Mahamudra Swaha. Purify a mind. Now Guru Shakyamuni Buddha sends from his heart chakra blissful radiant blue light, which sinks into your heart, destroying all your dualistic, fanatical thinking. All the negative mental energy. Your heart chakra is filled with blissful, radiant blue light energy. Mahamudra Swaha. Mahamudra Swaha. Mahamudra Swaha. So now we visualize dissolving Guru Buddha Shakyamuni into ourselves. The Buddha becomes small, comes to sit above our head, facing the same way as we are facing, and then sinks into your central channel and down into your heart chakra. As the Panchen Lama says, after making hundreds of fervent requests and so on, dissolve the Guru into yourself. Imagine Guru Buddha's consciousness and your consciousness unify, becoming one. Contemplate this experience. Let go. Let go. So the Buddha's mind is vast. The experience of having our mind unify with the mind of the Buddha is an experience of peace and clarity and vastness, completely undisturbed, completely undistorted. From the Buddha's side, The Buddha is one with us. So now from within this platform of being calm and collected and having a stable sort of experience, we allow our mind to become open, whatever experiences there are to be experienced in our mind. We don't control, we just allow. So an open awareness. What we do control is our reaction to the appearances in our mind. We don't react. We don't judge. We acknowledge and let go. We have this non-judgmental, neutral regard to all the various contents of our mind. And we let go. We may already feel quite calm and still and vast and clear, so we don't have to go inviting content to emerge. What we want to be able to do is abide in this clarity of the mind, even when other experiences emerge. Whatever appearances arise in the mind, they're similar to clouds in the sky. The sky is not fussed by whatever shape of cloud emerges. The sky allows the clouds to be, to come and go. What we want to do is to become the sky rather than be preoccupied by the clouds. Another metaphor is our mind is like an ocean, which is vast, and a calm ocean without a lot of waves. But even if a wave does come on the ocean, we want to be able to let the wave come and go. Even if there's a lot of energy in that wave, and our usual reaction would be to get caught up in that energy, we want to be able to let that energy just arise and fall away. So instead of surfing on that wave and letting that wave take us away somewhere, we are underneath the surface where it stays calm and we can watch the wave come and go. So whatever clarity of the mind, whatever reduced dizziness, as we stop reacting and giving weight to the content of our mind, we have this feeling of peacefulness, of vastness, of clarity. We don't grasp at that. We just ease into it. And we relax in that. But we want to continue to have a vivid experience of this. Our purpose is to free ourselves from all the trouble. And to do this, we can't do this with a dull, too relaxed mind. We don't want to agitate our mind, but we also don't want to become dull-minded. So this vantage point of clarity, something we want to keep it very vivid. So let's imagine that we do have this experience of the clarity of our own minds, where we feel we are the mirror rather than the reflection of the mirror. We have awareness of the mind, the clarity of the mind, rather than the content of the mind. And we can be aware of this in a continually vivid way. Not too vivid, because then we can become a little bit jumpy and excited, but quite vivid so that we don't slip into dullness. Again, whatever other content presents itself into our awareness, we feel it is just a reflection. We don't need to respond to it. So we'll take a little break. We'll pause the meditation, return to our usual levels of awareness, aware of our body, aware of the place where we are, the room we're in. Outside of formal meditation, such as what we will be doing now for a few minutes, we can still try to maintain some taste of not reacting to appearances, of bringing to mind that everything is this reflection. We won't have quite the same depth of experience of the clear light nature of our mind, but let's try to maintain a feeling that everything is a reflection and there's nothing here that we really need to react to strongly. It's all just a reflection. But with that bit of post-meditation mindfulness, let's take a break for 5 minutes. Be back in 5.
I've had a lot of tension in that. When the pressure is changing, the pain is out of.
No. Oh, so we've come back. So I invite anybody to, if they have comments, questions, how was that? While seeing all of our comments and questions as a reflection of the nature of mind, any interjections or anything to discuss? Hey, Dekili.
I just want to appreciate how clear you're reviewing and giving us the experience. Thank you, Dave.
Pleasure. We have somebody here who was sharing just a moment ago that she fell asleep, but she was aware of herself falling asleep. And then she started to dream and she was aware that she was dreaming. So my question was, well, could you really say you were asleep then?
It's nice to hear your voice, Becky.
I think if you're aware that you're falling asleep, you're not, normally when you fall asleep, you lose consciousness. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what happens. So can we say they're really asleep? Maybe we can.
We call it lucid dreaming.
Lucid dreaming. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So yeah. Hey, Marta.
Well, when I was like 19 years, no, like 23 years, in that time, I was doing a lot of exercise like yoga, aikido, and also I was in the Buddhism. And I remember in that time I was practicing with a Taiwanese teacher. And I went into a very deep, relaxed, like we are studying that. I think that is the calm abiding. But then I don't know why I stopped to continue to do the practice, and and then I see I'm like in retroceso. I'm not. For me, it's very difficult to go again to that state. I don't understand. It's like I want to ask. That was a question I want to do to Geshe today. It's like the bodhicitta, when we pray, like I wish that the bodhicitta don't that grow and don't go down.
Yes.
And the meditation happened the same? Is my question.
Yeah, I think with meditation, we can get discouraged if we have expectations. So, we can have marvelous experiences, but it may not be possible to have them the next time. So yeah, but I guess and this is the question that came up at the end of the day yesterday, was thinking about, completing this and how daunting that is. We can become discouraged. But I think the main thing to do is to focus on creating causes and conditions, and then letting the experience manifest naturally. So bodhicitta is part of creating the causes and conditions. Life, when it comes to concentration, it also has a lot to do with lifestyle, diet and environment. But we focus on creating the causes and then relax about the results coming. My experience is if you put a lot of energy into creating causes, the results, the experiences will come. You don't have to go searching for them too far. You just create a conducive cause and conditions, and results will come. Because the first time I went to a teaching of the Dalai Lama, thing that I came away with very clearly was becoming a Buddha is just a matter of cause and effect. Create the causes. And I think also to some extent, remove the obstacles, and it happens. So that's really where we need to focus. If we're going to worry about something, it's worrying about creating causes, merit. Yeah. Yeah, particularly.
Maybe I can just add one quick thing that I was shared at University of Toronto when I was teaching. There was a gal who said, well, I can't meditate, and I said, well, how do you know you can't meditate? Oh, well, my mind's doing this and that and this and that and this, so I can't do it. And I said, okay, well, you're doing half of it. You're doing the introspection.
Yeah. Yeah.
You're halfway there.
Minoshi was saying something like that too. She said,
Well,
my mind was all over the place. I said, well, you've already got the first step going there. You're aware of it.
I like how you said about mindful fish.
Mm-hmm.
Just be small and gentle.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. 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 So Emily is saying that this metaphor of the mindfulness fish is good to not create ripples. Taking that a step further, if you can imagine, if you're sitting in a bathtub and your goal is for there to be no ripples in the bathtub, if you find a ripple in the bathtub and you go smack to try and control that ripple, what are you doing? Right? Yeah. So yeah, this very gentle sort of and I think another key from the meditation occurred to me is maintaining a vivid awareness. It's a bit of a balancing act, but if there's a story when the Buddha decided to stop the austerities, part of it was because he watched a gentleman floating down the river, tuning his guitar or his sitar or whatever it was, and he said, if the string is too loose, it won't sound. If it's too tight, it snaps. So we have to have this kind of balance. If our mind becomes too loose, then we completely lose the thread. We don't have an awareness anymore. We fall asleep, or it's so dull. It really doesn't serve our purpose anymore, aside from just being relaxed, which isn't our purpose. Our purpose is to become completely free and then develop the capacity to help everyone else become free. So for that, we need a vivid awareness. Yeah. Okay. So then let's pretend we have been doing this for a while and we are quite good at developing a continuous, vivid experience of the clear, fundamental nature of our own mind, the conventional nature of our mind. So this is not the realization of Mahamudra, but it's a pretty significant step along the way. What do we have to add to this now? Is wisdom. If we want to become free from going around in circles, mistakenly creating suffering, then we have to apply wisdom to go beyond every aspect of the mind. So how do we do that? Is we start with this mindfulness fish. So not creating ripples, allowing our mind to continue to abide in its own nature, its own clarity. We use this introspective awareness, this mindfulness small fish, to look at our ego, to look at our sense of me, mine, of I. So it's difficult to do, because just like if you want to observe your own mind, your own mind is only clarity. nothing else. Your I also doesn't really have anything you can point to. It's very difficult to get a clear sense of your I. But this is part of what the job is to develop a very clear experience of your sense of self. And so we use this little mindfulness fish to, without causing ripples, to have this experience of yourself. So this is very different than some other systems, because there are other systems, or it's the easiest way to get a sense of yourself is when you're experiencing a bit of trauma. Then yourself becomes very, very clear. Whether you've been insulted, wrongly accused, or you're afraid, then your sense of self becomes very clear. It comes to the forefront. And so there are some meditation systems that you actually go looking for trouble in order to help have a very clear sense of yourself. That's maybe a little bit advanced, right? Like, don't do this at home, sort of thing, until you're ready. But in this one, we use this very clear platform, the clear nature of the mind platform, to then search for ourselves. And this, we're not doing an analysis yet. We're not going to try and refute the self. What we want to do to start with is just observe ourselves, observe this sense of self that we have. And this eventually leads into the very first step on developing the wisdom side of Mahamudra. And so, speaking from the Gould perspective, from Tsongkhapa's way of expressing this, in order to develop a clear understanding of the absence of inherent existence of the self, you have to have a clear experience of the inherently existing self. You have to have a target to shoot your arrow at. So you have to have a very good, clear experience of this inherently existing self before you can effectively negate it. And so this is where we have this wonderful experience of the clear nature of our own minds, this stable concentration, and then this little mindfulness fish that helps us to clarify our experience of ourselves, of our sense of I. So we can apply this meditation on emptiness. We can do this. It was very interesting to hear that Geshe said that there's the sutra, or what was it? Meditating on the nature of the I, or the absence of the inherent existence of the I, from a sutra perspective, which would be from the object possessor or the mind itself being conceptual, the sutra path, compared to the non-conceptual, clear.
Coarser mind and subtle mind.
Subtle mind.
So with the Tantra, you can access the extremely
Yeah,
subtle mind.
Yeah. I was stumbling over the word clear, because when in Tantra you speak of the clear, you meditate from the perspective of the clear light nature of the mind. And how does that differ from the conventional clarity of the mind?
I think that you hit the nail on the head. I think the clear light nature of the mind is the subtle representation of the coarser clear nature. So I think that clear, oh, sorry. I think that.
Oh, sorry, I don't even have that on. Oh,
okay.
yeah.
No, I'll just talk a little. So I think you hit the nail on the head, which is that the clear light that we're tapping to in Tantra, right, that has that aspect of luminosity and clarity on a very subtle and profound level, but some aspect of that clarity and luminosity is still accessible to us in the coarser level of the mind, which is what we work with in Sutra.
Right. Okay. Yeah, I think part of that would be in Tantra, we would have gathered all of our energies into the central channel through meditating on the body and collecting energies that way.
Yeah, there's no outflows of energy,
Yeah.
right? And because of that, it's a lot
Yeah.
more focused.
Yeah. And I think if you had a very clear experience of the fundamental nature of the mind, without doing that, where you don't have sensory information happening or conceptual information happening, you probably are in the same place. Where the gross consciousnesses are shut down, you achieve that through Tantra by manipulating your energies. Whereas you probably achieve the same movement of energy, but through working with concept.
Yeah, and you're just not able to access that most subtle level.
Not quite as subtle. Yeah. Did everybody capture that? Yeah. No, yes, no, kind of. Right.
Dave, could you just reiterate that again?
Yeah. So with Tantra, we use skillful methods to manipulate our energies. So the idea is that our awareness is coupled to energy in kind of an inseparable way, like a horse and a rider. So the rider is awareness, the horse is the energy. Or Geshe also uses a metaphor of two people, one who's blind but has legs, another person without legs who has eyes. So the one with eyes is the awareness, the one without eyes but legs is the energy. And they are coupled. They don't separate. And within this lifetime, they're always there together. And so in Tantra, you're actually working with the energy. The energy is actually a little bit easier to manipulate because it has a form, although it's a very subtle form, it still has a form. So it's something that you can, in a sense, grasp or move around and manipulate. And you do that with Tantra.
A friend of mine has an expression that says, action changes things.
Uh-huh.
I think that's-
Yeah, so you're acting on the energies.
Yeah.
So if you lead the horse around, the rider has no choice but to come. And so it's actually easier to work with a horse than it is to work with the rider. Because our awareness is formless, so it's really hard to grasp and manipulate. You can only do it with the awareness itself. And so that's one reason why Tantra is seen as being an effective, a more effective approach. It's because working with the energies can bring your mind into a state of awareness that you couldn't as easily do from within awareness itself.
I wonder if the sutra approach is actually quite difficult.
It takes a lot longer, right? The sutra path takes a lot longer.
Can you please repeat questions?
Yeah. Manoj was just saying that, so the sutra path probably takes longer then. And yeah.
And the other interesting thing too is if you have that direct realization of emptiness with that coarser level of mind that's accessible to you in sutra, you still, when you enter the path of Tantra, have to realize that emptiness with your subtle mind, even though you already realized it with the coarse mind. I think Geshe mentioned it would be a lot easier if you had that kind of coarse realization, but you still have to do it again. I'd never heard that before.
Yeah. But it only took the Buddha one night.
It did the Buddha one.
Yes,
yeah.
yeah.
But he was also on the 10th bhumi.
Yes. Did everybody hear that? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So where were we? Oh yeah. So the final bit here of Mahamudra, that with this use of this method to free ourselves from samsara, is to be able to meditate on the absence of inherent existence of self and phenomena. So we go after the self because it's part of every side of any equation. The self is one side of that equation. So we go after the emptiness of the self, it's really, really effective. So then we let's return to our imagining. We pretend we've been doing this. We have this stable, vivid experience of the clarity of our own mind. And then we use this mindfulness fish, this gentle introspective awareness to look at our experience of the self, of the I. So what makes this effective from Mahamudra perspective is that we've already trained in the view that everything is a reflection of the nature of the mind. So in a sense, we've developed this capacity to have a clear, vivid experience of the fundamental nature of our mind by not believing in and not reacting to all the appearances that come in our mind. So then when we observe ourself, we can also fairly easily come to see that this is also just a reflection of our mind. That we don't have to give ourselves much weight or consideration either, because it's just a reflection in our minds. And so this allows us to discover a sense of freedom from the self without having to do a huge amount of intense analysis. We've already put in quite a bit of work to develop this vivid, clear awareness of the nature of our minds. So Lamy actually loves to use the word duality or non-duality. And so this part of what comes along with developing this awareness of the fundamental clarity of the mind is an experience of non-duality. Because you start to observe how your mind is creating appearances. You start out by just observing the appearances and not giving them weight. But as you gain a deeper awareness of the clear light nature of the mind, you start to observe how appearances are emerging from this fundamental clarity of the mind. And you start to see that instead of these things seeming to be real out there, a dualistic view, you start to see that these are all just creations of the mind. They're all just a function of the mind. They're not separate from the mind. Not separate from the mind. So non-dual. So then you have a sense of self that is also not separate from the mind. It's just an appearance the mind creates. So you don't have to react to or give a special weight to this appearance in the mind, the self. It's just a creation of the mind. Not particularly important. And so there's a lot of freedom in that. And then use this little mindfulness fish that we have, because we've already studied, let's say, the fourfold analysis. So we're already familiar with the various logical arguments about this appearance being false because it appears to be one thing, but the mind is many things, so it can't be the mind. And your body is many things, but the self appears to be one thing, so it can't be any part of your body. You've already developed some familiarity with the fact that everything is you've already actually observed how everything is labeled by the mind. You start to be able to observe your mind composing reality for you. And so you stop reacting to and believing in those appearances the way they appear. So everything is just labeled, and it's in this way it's non-dual. And so then you can do a fairly gentle, or, without a very, Machig Labran, who's a great Mahasiddha in the 11th century Tibet, a woman. She used to criticize people who would use the analytical approach. She would call this torturing reality. So we don't want to go about torturing ourselves, torturing our mind, doing a very intense investigation with this Mahamudra approach. Instead, we take this very gentle approach. And Machid Labran's approach was more like just seeing everything as space. So our mind is like space, and everything is just a reflection in this space, like clouds in the sky or waves in the ocean. Our mind is space, and everything in it appearing is just space. So we don't have to torture appearances with a profound sort of investigative analysis. We just use this little, and create a bunch of ripples in the process. We just kind of ease into this awareness. We apply the same method of just seeing it as a creation of mind, and then let it go, let ourselves go. So shall we try another meditation and see how that goes? Okay. Just a few breaths. Collect our awareness and our energies back here into this time and place, our mind and our body. And then we bring into this mind of ours the image of the Buddha, but not just an image, the actual living presence of the Buddha, who takes the appearance to our mind of being our dearest friend, our closest confidant, and greatest protector. And we're doing this meditation to become like you, the Buddha, so that we can become like you, effortlessly, continuously, spontaneously benefiting all sentient beings. Please bless us to be able to do this. We'll say the mantra 3 times and then again do the visualization of the Guru Buddha entering our heart. So imagine Buddha, who is made out of insubstantial light, comes to the crown of our head, shrinks in size, and then dissolves through our central channel into our heart chakra, and we feel how the ultimate nature of the mind of the Buddha and the ultimate nature of our mind are utterly indistinguishable, like water mixing with water. And we cultivate an experience of vastness, of peace, and of clarity. You could say the Buddha is pointing out to us the clear light nature of our own mind. So within this clarity, this vast, peaceful, spacious clarity, we introduce this very small fish without creating any ripple, this awareness of seeking our sense of self, looking for our sense of inherently existing self. We want to look at our sense of self without becoming involved in our sense of self, without being down on ourself, without grasping at ourself. So from within this experience of the clarity of the mind, we seek out this appearance of the inherently existing self. So again, our principle, our objective awareness is the clarity of our own mind. And within this clarity, then will emerge this appearance of our sense of self. We want to do this without disturbing our minds, without getting involved, without judging. So then we do apply a gentle kind of analysis, pretending that we have this clear, abiding experience of the clarity of our minds, and that everything that appears to our mind is created by mind, non-dual with mind. We observe our sense of self. So a good part of this sense of self is valid. We have this self that arises on the basis of having a mind, having an awareness, and possessing this body. This is valid, and there's no problem, no cause of samsara with this valid, existing, conventional self. It's just a creation of our mind, non-dual of our mind labeling self upon this body and mind. For most of us, there will also be a part of this sense of self that will say, that will feel like I'm more than that. I'm more than just a label. This is the part we want to focus on. The part that resists being merely labeled by the mind. Again, with this mindfulness fish, gently, without creating a big ripple, we observe this part of our sense of self that resists being merely labeled by the mind, that feels like it is not, that it is other than, that is something apart from, that exists independently, that has its own nature. So then we gently look for where this is and how does it exist. It can either exist in the body or within the mind or the combination of body and mind. There's no other way in which it can exist. So where is it in the body? This part that is other than the clarity of our mind, other than a non-dual generation of mind, merely labeled upon body and mind. This inherently existing self. What part of the body is it in? It doesn't look like it's any part of the body. So again, what we have is this, we have this mind which is clear and knowing about what appears to be this inherently independently existing self, the self that resists being merely labeled a non-dual with the mind. It's not in the body. This sense of self is the one that says me and mine. And so it says my mind, which means that it holds itself separate from mine. So it can't exist in the mind either. So if we can't find it in the body and we can't find it in the mind, and since it appears to be just one thing, but the body and mind together are two things, it can't exist in the body or mind. So really we can't say we can find it anywhere. And with practice, what happens is this appearance of the inherent existent mind falls away. Since it can't be found, we come to recognize that it doesn't actually exist at all. This appearance of an inherently existing self. So it falls away. What we're left with is an absence of an inherently existing self. This is our object of awareness within the clear light nature of our mind. So we already have a stable concentration on the clarity of our own mind, which continues unchanged. And now we just use that basis. It's clear, powerful concentration to meditate on the absence of this inherently existing aspect of ourselves. So we now pause the meditation. We'll recite the mantra of Shakyamuni Buddha again 3 times and then do a dedication. Thinking that Buddha Shakyamuni also has recognized the absence of inherent existence of the self and the ultimate nature of the Buddha's mind and the ultimate nature of our mind, neither which exists inherently, is actually indistinguishable. No way to distinguish between the ultimate nature of our mind and the ultimate nature of the Buddha's mind. But then we dedicate whatever virtue, whatever merit, whatever goodness that we have created from this weekend, and also in the past, and whatever virtue we create in the future. We dedicate to going beyond what appears to be this inherently existing self, to recognizing Mahamudra, the one taste of all reality, fully awakened Buddha state, fully realizing our own potential. We do this not only to complete our own spiritual path, but to then perfectly help all sentient beings without exception to realize their own Buddha nature. The Supreme Jewel Buddha, the Supreme Jewel Bodhicitta that has not arisen, may it arise and grow, may that which has arisen not decline, but increase more and more. Zhang Chuksan Chok Rinpoche, Ma Ge Panam Ge Yurchit, Ye Pan Yam Par Me Par Yam, Gong Ne Gong Wu Pe Wa Sho. May this supreme realization of the absence of inherent existence of the self and all phenomena, where it has not arisen, may it arise and grow. Where it has arisen, may it not decline, but increase more and more.
Tongni Tawa
Dawa Rinpoche, Make Panam Ji Dorje, Jeban Yam Parame Payam, Gome Gondu Beor Sho. So I'm going to share two more lines of dedication. Oh, I just rebooted, so I don't have them. I guess I won't because it'll take too long. Anyway, that's because we're now 3 o'clock. Along with dedicating all of our merit beyond our current sense of self towards our fully awakened selves, we also recognize that the fully awakened mind, our future capacity, will directly experience the minds of all sentient beings. And rather than shrinking from the suffering in the minds of all sentient beings, our fully awakened potential selves will engage with great compassion, holding each being as precious as an only child. So consistent with that wonderful vastness, we imagine now taking all of our merit and, like a beautiful gift, we give to every sentient being, going beyond what seems to be the constraints of time and space. Here and now, we offer this to all sentient beings. May all sentient beings achieve the state of full awakening. We can do this within this mind that sees that everything is a mere reflection. Do the past, present, future merit of myself and all sentient beings and all the Buddhas who are merely the reflection of the empty nature of the mind. May the I, which is a reflection of the empty nature of the mind, achieve the state of full awakening, which is a mere reflection of the empty nature of the mind. And lead all sentient beings who are a mere reflection of the empty nature of the mind to the state of full awakening, which is merely a reflection of the empty nature of the mind. Even if I have to do those all by myself alone, which is merely a reflection of the empty nature of the mind. Okay.
Thank you, David.
Any last thoughts or questions or reactions or experiences? Next Sunday we meet with Geshe again.
Next Sunday, the Lamrim,
Yeah.
to the 5th Dalai Lama's Lamrim.
Back to the oral transmission of the words of Manjushri.
Yes.
Online only.
Online only. Yeah.
And then the following weekends, we will be here, and it will be the Lamrim again, and then the Saturday before that, it's the Chakras.
Yeah. Yeah. So a bit of Chakras and Vara 2 weeks from now, and again again.
And Thursdays, chanting.
Yeah.
words of meditation.
Of course, Thursdays we're praying for the quick return of the completely brilliant and utterly capable emanation of Lama Zopa Rinpoche. See you all later.
Thank
Thank you
you.
very
Thank
much.
you.
Thank you very much, Dave.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.